Alright, first video. Unscripted. A little scripted. Maybe kind of scripted. Okay, today we're going to be talking about UFC London, Edwards versus Brady. Before every fight, I'm going to give a little disclaimer about whether I like a fighter or don't like them, just for transparency. I'm only human. Cool, let's get some fight predictions done. First fight in the card, Guram Kutateladze versus Kaue Fernandes. Guram, the pretty heavy favourite. Older than Fernandes, 2 inches taller, 1 inch less reach. If you go into their careers, you can see Guram's, for a guy who really doesn't have that much UFC experience, like a volume of fights, he's really been in the UFC for a deceiving amount of time at this point. He debuted against Gamrot, very close fight. People thought he could have lost that. It was a split decision. Had 2 cancelled fights, both against Don Madge. He withdrew from both of those. Came back after almost 2 years off. Fought Tamir Ismagulov, lost a split decision. Karma for beating Gamrot. Then had another 2 cancelled fights against Thiago Moises. He was injured. Jamie Malaki, he withdrew, and then fought Elvis Brenner. Got TKO'd. I was very happy. Besides the point. But that wasn't like a phenomenal look for him. Had a fight with Abdelkarim Al-Swadi, but Al-Swadi pulled out. And then pretty recently, this is the most active he's been in ages, in August, he fought Jordan Vucenic, Cage Warriors guy. So you look through his fights, and you see he's really hasn't had that easy of a run. Obviously, Mateusz Gamrot, I think he's ranked number 8. Ismagulov, being a guy who was in the rankings, then retired for some reason. Brenner, probably, you could argue he's the lowest level guy he's fought. Still a good fighter, but not a great look. Especially with how people held. Guram is like almost this larger-than-life figure who was going to take over the division. That never happened. And then Jordan Vucenic, who, you know, good guy coming in. If you watch certain YouTube channels, you would have heard about him. Again, very close fight. He's coming in fighting Kaue Fernandes, who, you know, honestly, I don't rate him too highly. He came into the UFC, lost a split decision against Mark Giacchese. I think, you know, if you're really gonna be something, you need to beat Mark Giacchese, and I think in order to beat Guram, you're going to need to be something. And then after that, he fought Muhammad Yahya, TKO'd him in a round, but like, you know, Yahya was only really there as the diversity hire because, you know, the UFC had no talent from the UAE around that area. Then a cancelled fight against Jared Gordon, where Fernandes withdrew. That was in February. So we've got this fight going on here. I think Guram's going to be too skilled. I think he's going to be better everywhere than Kaue Fernandes. Honestly, I'm a little disappointed by the matchmaking. I think they should have given Guram someone a little better. Not like a ranked opponent or anything, but, you know, someone that would have made this feel a little more interesting, because, as said, Guram doesn't fight a lot, so when he does, it's kind of like, oh shit, okay, it's time to watch this guy fight. But, you know, Guram hasn't really shown himself as a big finisher in the UFC so far. Kaue is probably the lowest level guy he's fought, though. Could get a finish. I don't think so. I'm going to go Guram by decision. Caolan Loughran versus Nathan Fletcher. Honestly not sure I have much to say about this fight. I feel kind of indifferent to both guys. If you look at them, they're both similar in age, similar in height, similar in reach. With the really all the positives going to Fletcher being an inch taller, 2 inches more in reach, and like, what's that, a year and 8 months younger. But I don't think that's going to factor in, or the age. I don't think the age is going to factor in too much. If you look through the careers, Caolan Loughran, what I really don't like is the loss to Jake Hadley coming up. I don't like that. That's kind of gross. He's 1-2 in the UFC. Lost to Taylor Lapulus in his debut. That's fine. You know, you get outstruck by Taylor Lapulus, pronouncing it right. That happens to people. But then you go in there, you fight Angel Pacheco. It's another one of those ones where it's like, okay, you beat Angel Pacheco, cool. You're not totally bottom of the barrel. Let's see you fight someone better. Then he fought Jake Hadley. I feel like this was on short notice. I could be wrong. But Jake Hadley, obviously being a flyweight and still beating him, I don't think that really bodes well for Caolan's, you know, future potential. Then you look at Nathan Fletcher coming off the Ultimate Fighter, losing on there to Khan Offley. which is not aging well considering Offley's running the UFC of 0-2 so far. But then debuted against, here we go, Zigomantas Ramaska, there we go, and choked him out in the second round. I think this fight's probably going to be pretty boring. I think Nathan Fletcher's probably going to use some boring grappling, take down Loughran, control him, win a decision like that. Again, I don't care much. Indifferent to both these guys. We'll see though. Could be fun, and I could be wrong. Alright, Shauna Bannon versus Puja Tomar, second try. Let's do this. Same thing here, not much to say. I don't think either of them are very good or will become anything. Attributes, fairly similar. They're almost the exact same age, but Shauna Bannon has an inch of height and 6 inches of reach. Fucking Puja Tomar's a T-Rex out here, 59-inch reach. That might be one of the shortest reaches in the entire UFC. I wouldn't be surprised. Women's strawweight bout here. Looking into their careers, Shauna Bannon 1-1 in the UFC. She debuted against Bruna Brazil, lost unanimous decision. Not the worst unranked women's strawweight to lose to, but still, like, yeah, not great. 2 cancelled fights, and then bet a girl that transparently never heard of before, Alice Adeline, 9-5. You want a split decision over a 9-5 opponent? Good job. Like, hold the applause. Whereas you look at Puja Tomar, 1 fight in the UFC. She went 1-3 in one championship. That's gross. But her 1 fight was a split decision win over another woman I've never heard of, and that's on me. But Rayanne Amanda, 14-7. You shouldn't be winning split decisions over people with a 14-7 record. It's not great. It's not a good look. I'm just gonna circle back to what I said before, about the reach though. Looking at both of them, they're probably both gonna try and keep it on the feet. If you can't make it work with a 6-inch reach advantage, I don't know what to say. In terms about how I feel about both these fighters, couldn't care less, to be honest. I think it's cool that Shauna Bannon, I think she's one of the only Irish women in the UFC. Puja Tomar, one of the only Indians, probably the only female Indian, I think. Shauna Bannon, I know I'm picking a lot of decisions, but I just don't really see the finishes so far. Shauna Bannon, decision. Cool. Andrey Pulyaev versus Christian Leroy Duncan, CLD. I like CLD. I think he's cool. Andrey Pulyaev, I haven't seen him fight before. Fully being honest, looked over his topology a bit to try and figure out what's what. I don't see why CLD should be a minus 550 favourite. If you look at his career in the UFC so far, I'm not saying he's a fraud, but he's 3-2. He debuted against Dusko Todorovic, and Dusko's knee exploded, so he got the win by TKO there. I still think he probably would have knocked out Dusko had that not happened, but it's still an asterisk. Lost to Armin Petrosian, I remember at the time thinking, like, okay, Armin Petrosian, he's a sneaky kickboxer. He's good, but now we've kind of seen, you can beat Armin Petrosian. Like, it's not impossibly. I think he just got cut, actually. So that loss ages pretty badly. Bet Dennis Tululim when he was 11-8. Like, good. You've beaten Dennis Tululim, but that's not showing me anything. Claudio Ribeiro, that's okay. Knocked him out, good. And then lost to Gregory Rodriguez, who we just saw fight Jared Cannonier and put up a respectable fight. So, that's a good, no, not a good loss, but it's a respectable one. Pulyaev, he's coming off the Contender Series, 1 decision. Before that, he was getting a lot of finishes, but he was finished, he's been finished not even 2 years ago, just on the regional scene. There was against a 4-0 guy, though. I just think here, CLD, well, for one, if it goes to a decision, we're in London. He'll get the nod if it's close, which isn't fair, but just, speaking facts. But I also think he has more UFC experience as well, and I think that's probably what is going to make the difference here. Bright lights might be a bit too much for Andrey, especially coming off Contender Series. There's, tiny little crowd there to going into what I'm assuming is the O2 Arena. I think we're in the O2 for the O2 Arena. I'm gonna go CLD by TKO in the second round because he seems to like TKO on guys in the second. Though Pulyaev is 2 inches taller, half an inch less in reach, yeah, I don't think it's going to matter that much. CLD, second round, TKO. Marcin Tybura versus Mick Parkin. This is the first fight on the card that I think I'm actually... I wouldn't say I'm very excited for it, but, it's got some intrigue. It's got some intrigue on it. Mick Parkin, 10-0, undefeated prospect. Really... A storyline I've been really invested in this year with the UFC's all these undefeated fighters who keep on losing. I think like 8-15. That number's almost definitely not correct, but I know it's something like that. And when this fight first got announced, I was bandwagoning Mick Parkin. Still kind of am. I like him. I want him to win. Training partner of Big Tommy Aspinall. But then I thought about it and I heard people talk about it and I'm like, is he really that good? He's 10-0, right? 4 of those come in the UFC. Let's look at those wins though. Jamal Pogues, he's alright. Kaue Machado, he's alright. Muhammad Usman, he's alright. Lucas Bresky, the only guy out of those he was able to finish was Lucas Bresky. 9-4, not a great fighter. Good, you're a fighter in the heavyweight division. You should be finishing Lucas Bresky. I don't know how he's in the UFC. Tangent aside. Then you look at Marcin Tybura though, and he's just had a lot of staying power in this in his UFC career. I'm not gonna. I know so far I've gone over every fight for all the fighters on the card and how the UFC careers have gone. Not gonna do that for Marcin Tybura. He's had 21 fights in the UFC, and that would get very monotonous. So we're just gonna kind of go over some highlight stuff. So he debuted in 2016. He lost to Tim Johnson, ages ago. Almost feels like a separate career. He's had big fights against guys like Verdum, Derek Lewis, Volkov, some other ones. Obviously the Aspinall fight. But lately, especially, he's been win, loss. He's coming off a win. So if that pattern maintains, he could lose this fight, but I don't think that sounds enough logic. I don't think... Here's the thing, I don't really feel like I've seen enough from Mick Parkin to know. So it could be one of those ones where after this fight, he could knock out Marcin Tybura, and it could be like, oh, okay, I guess it's just he fights more to the level of the opponent, and he finished Bresky, because Bresky's just so terrible that fighting to his level would just mean lowering yourself so much that Mick didn't want to do that. But I can't rely on that. Marcin's beaten a lot of alright guys, coming off that win against another undefeated guy, Johnson Inez, where he just took him down and beat the shit out of him. And I'm going to predict the same thing. I'm going to say Marcin Tybura by second round TKO due to ground and pound elbows. I hope Mick Parkin wins. It's kind of like at this point, screw off Tybura. We don't really want you in the rankings anymore. But we'll see. I think he's going to win. Loughran Kavanaugh versus Felipe dos Santos. This is an interesting one. Loughran Kavanaugh being a decently hyped up prospect due to his regional activity. I think Cage Warriors, because he's from the UK. They all go through there. Really big favourite against Felipe dos Santos. I don't say it. Felipe, a guy that came in on short notice when Kai Kara France pulled out against Manel Cab, and had a really, really not competitive, it was who won, but he was keeping up with Manel Cap in their fight in the striking. And Loughran Kavanaugh's another skilled striker. He hasn't proven himself to be as good as Manel Cap. But after that, Felipe, he won a split decision against Victor Altamirano, against just these non-impressive wins, and then he lost to Andrey Lima, which isn't a bad loss, Andrey just won again. I think it was either this past weekend, the weekend before that. So Andrey's pretty good. I really want to pick Felipe dos Santos, but I feel like it's just me trying to be a contrarian. And also really trying to perpetuate this undefeated fighter curse in 2025. Gonna pick Loughran Kavanaugh. Gonna pick him by decision. I think it's gonna be close, like his UFC debut with Jose Choa was. But I think he's probably just gonna outstrike Felipe dos Santos in the fight. Both young guys. Loughran Kavanaugh a bit smaller, but I think he'll be more skilled. I think he'll make up for it that way. Yeah, Loughran Kavanaugh decision. Jai Herbert versus Chris Padilla. Jai Herbert, I like him. He's alright. Chris Padilla, don't care that much. No bias either way on that one. Jai Herbert coming in as just very barely coming in as the favourite. He's 36 years old. I didn't see that when I was looking over this before. Okay. He's 4 inches taller. Sorry, 3 inches of reach. Jai Herbert's fought some pretty good guys in the UFC. He's had 8 fights, which feels like only yesterday, man. It was 2020. And Dan Hardy was freaking out over the Trinaldo stoppage. But he got beaten by Trinaldo. Whatever. Not great to lose to Trinaldo that late in his career, but, whatever. Lost to Moicano. Moicano's good. He's ranked now. We know that. It's not a bad loss. Bet Karma Worthy. It's another one of those ones where it's like, yeah, good, you bet Karma Worthy. It doesn't really show... It shows me you're not bottom of the barrel. Then he lost to Ilia Topuria. Dropped Ilia in that fight. Need to give him credit for that. He's definitely got power. That's for sure. But then, obviously, Ilia came back and absolutely chinned him. It's one of my favourite knockouts of all time. It's devastating. Bet Kyle Nelson. I think after that, Kyle went on that win streak he was on. Did he not? No, he had a draw to Duho Choi and then 1-3. Anyway, tangent. So bet Kyle Nelson, that's alright. I think the win's aged a little better now. Draw with Ludovic Klein. That's the reason why Ludovic is 7 in a row undefeated instead of 7 wins in a row, right? Yeah. So that's good. Lost to Ziam. Again, another loss that, it's not that bad of a loss. And then bet Rolando Bedoya, who, same thing. Good, you bet Rolando Bedoya. Chris Padilla coming into the UFC. Bet James Lontop, who, Rufy couldn't finish, though they obviously... Rufy was trying to strike with him and says here Lontop got subbed. And then bet Rongju. I like that. I like that he beat Rongju there. Especially with the performance that Rongju just had over the debutant. What was his name again? It's a great fight. Cody Steele. I was already going to pick Chris Padilla, but just seeing that 36 years old, almost 37 as well, I'm going to pick Chris Padilla to test the chin of Jai Herbert. Herbert's chin, not the best. You could even call him a bit of a chinny guy. I'm going to go with definitely a knockout. What round, though? We'll say... Fuck it. First round KO for Chris Padilla. I think I could be totally wrong. Could be totally off base. Herbert could just go out there, outpoint him, outscale him, possibly get his own finish. I don't see it happening. I'm going Jai Herbert by KO. No, wrong one. Going Chris Padilla by KO in the first. Nathaniel Wood versus Morgan Charriere. Off the bat, incredibly biased. I love Nathaniel Wood. I really enjoy listening to him talk on Fight Front. I'm going to try to not let that influence my pick, but foreshadowing. Morgan Charriere, I think he's alright. I don't really feel either way towards him. You look at the career of Nathaniel Wood, he's had same thing. I think he debuted in 2019. 2018 he debuted, so he's been in the UFC for quite a while now. He's 31 years old. He's not really... I guess he's still a prospect, but not... I mean, his nickname's the Prospect, but come off it, mate. You're 11 fights in the UFC. 8-3 in the UFC. Good. Look at his losses. John Dodson. I remember that being arguably an early stoppage, but didn't really matter. Casey Kenny, I remember thinking definitely he won that fight. And then the Muhammad Naimov one, that was disgusting refereeing. Naimov should have at least had 1 point taken away from it, if not disqualified. So, it says he's 4-1 in his last 5. Really, that should be 4 wins, 1 no contest. Who am I to say, though? But the Naimov fight is the only blemish on his featherweight career. Nate, bit of a chinny guy. Bit of a chinny guy for this weight class, which kind of scares me, because Charriere, he's known to knock some guys out. Not the prettiest of record. 20-10-1, not great. But in the UFC, 2-1, arguably he beat Shep Mariscal, and Shep Mariscal's a pretty good guy to be taken to a controversial split decision. Obviously, you'd rather win the fight, but it's a moral victory, I guess. Debuted against a no-name, body kicked him. His body kick's very nice for Charriere. Had the Shep fight. And then beat Gabriel Miranda. Just, I feel like I keep saying this on this card, but just another guy that, yeah, you should beat. That doesn't really tell me much. I'm seeing quite a few people pick Charriere here as an underdog pick. This might be where my bias is showing. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Wood is going to be able to coast. He's going to be able to mix it up. He's much more experienced in the UFC at this higher level. And Charriere fought great guys on the regional scene. Paul Hughes, Vucenic, who's also on this card, who we talked about. No, we didn't. He's next. Yeah, I just think Nate's going to probably coast to a unanimous decision. He's older, has more experience. He's a little shorter. I don't think it's going to matter. He'll grapple him. Nathaniel Wood by decision. Jordan Vucenic versus Chris Duncan. This is another exciting one. Bias report. I like Vucenic. Chris Duncan, I like him alright, but I don't know if this one's going to be very good for him. Duncan, older by a couple years, same height, but Duncan has an inch and a half less reach than Vucenic. Also, battle of the bad nicknames. The epidemic Vucenic, it rhymes, but, not great. And Chris the Problem Duncan. You may as well call yourself, the Prospect or something like that. It's just so rinse and repeat the Pitbull. Anyway. Jordan Vucenic, lots of grappling finishes before he got into the UFC. Lost to Paul Hughes in the regional scene. It's a fine loss. He'd also beaten him as well, so they're 1-1. And then lost, as I said earlier, on the card to Guram Kutateladze in a competitive fight. Chris Duncan, he's had 4 fights in the UFC so far. Beaten Omar Morales, Yanal Ashmus, and Balaji Oki. Best win there probably, or not probably, it is Yanal Ashmus, but I seem to remember Yanal breaking his arm pretty early in that fight and really just not being able to do anything. And Chris Duncan couldn't finish him, even though he had one arm. The one loss coming to Manuel Torres, and even though Manuel just lost to Ignacio Bahamondes, that's, losing to Torres isn't a bad loss. That's fine, but he did get subbed by him, and that kind of informs my pick here. As stated before, Vucenic does have good grappling. I think he also has good striking, he can mix it up. Chris Duncan's, he's as slow as a tortoise. So I think you're going to see Vucenic mix it up on him. Maybe, hit him in the striking, go to the grappling, wear him down, and probably get a submission in the 3rd round. I'm going to go Jordan Vucenic by a 3rd round submission. Molly McCann versus Alexia Thainara. I'm not going to pretend like I care much about this fight. It's only up here so high because Molly McCann's she got a couple of good KOs a couple years ago. She's 14-7. She is not great. She's not that great. Alexia Thainara, never watched her fight before, but I had a look over her record. She has submission wins, and that's all I really need to pick her over Molly McCann. Molly has no grappling defense. It's tragic. Alexia, decent record for WMMA. 11-1's pretty good. Her only loss coming to Bruna Brazil, and that was by submission, but that was over 5 years ago. Better 7, no opponent on the Contender Series. That's good. Molly McCann is coming into this fight, having just also actually lost to Bruna Brazil. It's funny. Before that, she submitted Diana Balbita, and I guess what was supposed to be her being like, look at me, my grappling's better, but that doesn't erase the fact that you got armbarred in less than 2 minutes by 10-7 Yulia Stoliarenko. I can't unsee that. Cool, you spinning KO'd Luana Carolina and Hannah Goldie. Good job. And that's cool. And Molly McCann, probably up there as one of the most exciting female fighters when she gets her way. But I don't think Alexia is going to let her, really get her way, to put it plainly. With Molly McCann, I feel like they really messed up an opportunity in her career just to keep on feeding her people that aren't great. They went Luana Carolina, Hannah Goldie. She got both back-to-back, spectacular KOs for WMMA. And then they'll, put her against Erin Blanchfield. We all knew that Erin Blanchfield was going to be, at least somewhere in that top 10. And that McCann most likely isn't. And they tried, putting her back on track with the Stoliarenko one, but she just shows that she's not at that level. And I don't know whether or not Alexia is going to be top 10, but guarantee when it's all said and done, she's probably going to have a better UFC record than 7-6, which is what Molly McCann has right now. If it's not too obvious, I'm not really a big Molly McCann fan. And again, Alexia, never watched her fight before. I don't really have an opinion. So I'm gonna go Alexia by first round submission. Kevin Holland versus Gunnar Nelson. I don't like Kevin Holland that much, which I feel like is becoming more and more of a common opinion, which I'm glad on. Gunnar Nelson, I like Gunnar Nelson. He's been around for a while. That the cut he opened up on Alex Oliveira back in the day, that would have been 2018 Canada pay-per-view. I need to go look that up now and see. 1 second. Alex Oliveira, Holloway Ortega, was that a Canada card? It was. Dude, look at that. Yeah, since then, Gunnar Nelson, though, since that fight in 2018, he's only fought 4 times, which is pretty crazy. Leon Edwards in a split decision. Shouldn't have been a split decision. We'll talk more about Leon later. Bloody Leon Edwards. Gilbert Burns lost 2 by decision. That was when Burns was coming up in the welterweight division. Not much was stopping Burns back then. And then since then he's beaten Takashi Sato by decision and Brian Barberena by armbar. 2 guys kind of bottom of the barrel, but whatever, decent enough guys. Kevin Holland has had such a weird career in the UFC. From getting called up short notice to fight Thiago Santos, win a little bit of a run, lost to Brendan Allen, then had that awesome 2020 run, those 5 wins in a row, 4 finishes, the kind of gross, weird split decision win over Darren Stewart mixed in there right in the middle. But then just the 2 fights that really, I don't think anyone saw it at the time, but they really said a lot about his mentality, and that was the Derek Brunson fight and the Marvin Vettori one, where he was just triangling himself on bottom. He was very complacent. And it was just like, well, what are we doing here, Kevin? It didn't feel like he wanted to win. He kind of just accepted the loss, and that really has been the theme of his career, especially recently. Fought Hamzat, that's, that happens. I'm not going to say he quit against Hamzat, but the Wonder Boy one, he didn't fight a smart fight, and then he got Santiago Ponzinibbio, Michael Chiesa. It's more of a wash Santiago, but Santiago was kind of outstriking him in moments there. Michael Chiesa, you beat Michael Chiesa, good job. It's not 2016 anymore. It's not a good one. The people who think he beat Jack Della Maddalena are delusional. He fought Michael Venom Page. That's a weird matchup. That's a hard guy. I'm not going to hold that against him. And then Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, a fight. Mikhail's not the best. He can do alright. Cool. That was a cool finish. But then really against Roman Dolidze, re-injured himself. But losing to Roman Dolidze is not great, even if it's by injury. And then the Reina Doretta fight especially, it kind of cemented to me, I'm not going to pick Kevin Holland against a grappler until, I can see him, really go in there and prove that he still wants to be here. This fight got announced, I think it was a couple days, it felt like, after he got subbed by Reina Doretta, and it's like, they're just putting you up against another grappler. That being said, an active and older grappler, I think Gunnar Nelson can he's a guy that Kevin Holland can knock out, definitely. Especially if Gunnar feels himself a bit too much on the feet, but I don't really see Gunnar as the type of guy who's going to do that. I think he will go for the takedowns. I think he'll probably submit Kevin Holland. I'm going to say I want to say second, but I want to say first. I just don't believe in Kevin Holland. He's not inspiring confidence in any performance he's really putting on recently, apart from the Oleksiejczuk fight. Whereas Gunnar, he is a good grappler. He's got his weird karate stuff going on, but his bread and butter is the grappling. He's getting a bit older, but I'm going to pick Gunnar Nelson by first round submission. Jan Blachowicz versus Carlos Alberg. Very excited for this fight. Very, very excited. It's been ages since Jan Blachowicz has fought. I love Jan Blachowicz. Such a cool fighter to watch. So crafty. Crafty craftsman. Against Carlos Alberg. Another guy that, I like. I'm from New Zealand, so of course I'm going to support most of the New Zealand talent. Carlos Alberg, for a prospect, or a guy who I suppose is entering into contender status, especially if he wins this fight, he's pretty old. 6'4" though, against 6'2" of Jan Blachowicz. Jan is going to also have an inch of reach. I think this fight is pretty simple for me. Jan Blachowicz is coming off almost a 2-year layoff and what I think was, if I'm remembering correctly, it was like double shoulder surgery. He's 42 years old. I know what I'm getting from Carlos Ulberg. I'm getting a technical striker on the feet. He had a close fight with Vulcan, but he's built his confidence back up, especially after that loss to Kennedy Nizuchukwu, and you saw him in the Fabio Charant fight. It really felt like he didn't have confidence. Jan Blachowicz, though, really close fight with Alex Pereira. So if he comes back in and he's like that again, in that same sort of form, he could very easily just come in here and shut down Ulberg. There's a storyline, obviously. Jan Blachowicz taking Israel Adesanya's Carlos Ulberg being a teammate of Israel Adesanya's, but I'm going to go with Carlos Ulberg by a competitive decision. I don't think Jan Blachowicz is going to look the same anymore. Leon Edwards versus Sean Brady. The main event here, not as good as Leon Edwards versus Jack Della Maddalena. I feel like that fight, for obvious reasons, was going to be a lot better. But it's good. It's good for Sean Brady. I think he probably deserved some sort of a step up in the rankings. Did he deserve Leon Edwards? I'm not sure about that. Like even Sean Brady's placement in the rankings, I think he's top 5 now, and it's like, kind of, how did you sneak up there, buddy? I guess it's his win over Gilbert Burns, but I don't know if Gilbert should have been as high ranked as he was when he bet him. Anyway, I was gonna say not the point. It kind of is the point. I don't think Sean Brady's as good as people say he is. I think you lose to Bilal Muhammad. Losing to Bilal's fine. Lots of guys in the division now have lost to Bilal, unfortunately. But you get standing TKO'd. You finished by Bilal Muhammad. Like that. Bilal Muhammad couldn't finish Gilbert Burns when he had a broken arm. You know? But he's finishing you by standing TKO. You're just standing there absorbing punishment. I remember when that fight happened, I was furious. And forms part of the reason why I don't like Sean Brady that much. Same with Leon, actually. I don't like him as much anymore now. Especially, I think, retrospectively. Looking over his title reign, it's a bit like, you got the head kick, which is good. I guess we'll lead into talking about Leon now. Became champion with that head kick over Usman. I don't think he got lucky, but I think if you play that fight 10 out of 10 times, he's not getting the head kick. In a lot of those scenarios, and Usman probably is going to win. That being said, Usman came into the trilogy fight. Usman maybe a little bit declined, neither here nor there. Leon beat him by majority decision, because I think there was a point taken for Leon, which, by the way, Usman cheated so much in their first fight. I think it was their second fight. But he didn't get any points taken away for anything. Not the point. The boring Colby Covington fight, you can put that on Colby as well. It's kind of Leon and Colby's fault. And the Bilal fight, Leon's made a lot of excuses. It was 5 a.m. It was 5 a.m. for Bilal as well. He made it work. That being said, though, Brady has nothing on the feet. He's been outstruck by possibly some of the worst UFC. Like Michael Chiesa, the guy I mentioned before, when we were talking about Kevin Holland. Like, you're getting busted up. Like, I think he got his nose broken by Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa shouldn't give you a nosebleed, let alone a broken nose. And then obviously, like I said, getting TKO'd by Bilal. Getting outstruck by Bilal. That's happened to people, but TKO'd, that's rough. Leon's a good striker. He showed in the Usman fights, he has a good takedown defense. I don't think that Brady can really do much to Leon here. I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong. Brady could take him down. He could look at what Bilal did and replicate that a bit. And, I honestly hope both of them lose. I hope both of them somehow lose. I don't like this fight very much. I don't like that. I like that one of them has to lose. I don't like that one of them has to win, though. But I think I'd prefer it to be Leon Edwards. And I think he will win. He's the slight underdog for some reason. Sean Brady, I don't get it. Well, I get why you'd pick him, but I don't get why he's the favourite. Anyway, Leon Edwards, if it was any other fighter, I'd say late rounds TKO, but I don't think Leon has that in him. So I'm going to say Leon Edwards by unanimous decision. That's all the fights talked about. My first video. So, clearly my first video. If you have any suggestions, things I could do better, video ideas that you want to see that maybe other creators aren't speaking about, I have a list of stuff that I want to do, such as like the obvious like card predictions and breakdowns, after cards happen, doing reactions, fights to make, the sort of the standard stuff for MMA YouTube. But then I also have some other ideas. I want to make a video on the fighting nerds and sort of what their ceilings are. If that's interesting, let me know, because I don't know. I created this channel because I want to talk to people about MMA. I don't really have anyone that I can talk to about it. Yeah, and it trust me, it is a need, not a want. I have to talk about this sport. Thank you for listening, though, or watching. Take care of yourself. Have a good day, and see you next time.